everyone, and welcome back to our channel. If this is the first time that you've found our video, this is obviously Ken and Thea's Outdoor Adventures, and I'm Ken.
And I'm Thea.
Thea. And today's date is November 10th, 2019, and it's that time of the year when pretty much all of the people who thru-hiked the PCT in 2019 have finished and posted all their videos, and now you're probably searching YouTube trying to find out who's going to be hiking the trail in 2020, and well, we are. So hopefully you'll want to subscribe and follow us on our journey. So I think what we should do right now is we'll introduce ourselves, tell you a little bit about who we are, our background, why we want to hike the PCT, and then we'll conclude with what I think are some special challenges that both Thea and I are going to have that are going to make what's already a difficult hike just a little bit more challenging, so you can get some idea about what we're going to try and overcome while we're hiking it. So having said that, again, my name is Ken. Thea and I both live in southeastern Washington right now. I've lived here for 25 years. In 2 months, I'm going to be retiring from my job at Washington State University, where I have worked for the past 24 years. Prior to my career at WSU, I had a career in the Army as an intelligence officer. And then prior to that, well, I've been in the outdoors my entire life and pretty much had the opportunity to live all over the world and have enjoyed a lot of really great outdoor places, but I've never really had a chance to do something like what we're playing now with the Pacific Crest Trail. So before I get into kind of why I want to hike it, I'll let Thea introduce herself, and then we'll start on that.
I am Thea, short for Cynthia, and I'm 54 years old. I have been in healthcare for about the last 30 years. I've been a nurse since 1997 and a nurse practitioner since 2011. And as of this coming Friday, I will be giving my notice for quitting my job. I have to give a 90 days notice, and I'll let them know that I'm going to be hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. So unlike Ken, who gets to retire and never go back, I have to go back when I'm done. But I'm super excited for what the future will bring after I get off the PCT. I have lived in the West my entire life. I was born in California, moved to Oregon when I was 12, and lived in Montana. I've lived in Idaho for about 20 plus years, and now live in Washington. So hiking the Pacific Crest Trail is kind of exciting because I will be traveling through all 3 states that I have lived in. So it's kind of like going home.
So I'm sure that the one question on everyone's mind is, why do a couple of over-the-hill folks like us want to tackle the PCT? Well, I've been backpacking my entire life. My father took me up in the Sierras into Purple Lake. I'll post a mile. Purple Lake is actually on the PCT. I can't remember the mile marker. I'll post that right above. He took me in there when I was 6 years old. It was about a 10-mile hike for a 6-year-old kid. But according to my dad, I did it with minimal complaints and made it back out again. And then every year from the time I was 6 years old until I was 18 and graduated high school and left home, that's what our family did every summer, was we went backpacking in the Sierras. Since then, I've continued to backpack pretty much every year whenever I have a chance, all over the country, anywhere from New Mexico all the way up to Alaska, and obviously a lot of backpacking where we live now in Idaho and in Washington. When I was 13 years old, actually for my 13th birthday, my dad bought me a book by a man named Colin Fletcher. The book was called The 1,000-Mile Summer. And that book had a huge impact on me as far as wanting to do a through hike like this. This man hiked, at that time, he hiked the length of California from Mexico all the way to the Oregon border. And this was decades before the establishment of the PCT. He hiked it in 1956, which was the year that I was born. And it sounded like such an epic adventure to me, such a challenge that all these years I've just really, really wanted to do something somewhat comparable. However, and I'm sure everyone watching this video can relate to this, you know, you've got career, you've got family, you've got finances, any number of reasons that just make it so that you can't pull off something like this. But now that I'm retiring, I've got a wife who is excited about this adventure. We're going to try and pull it off. So, this might be an appropriate time maybe to insert something I didn't plan to talk about. If you've watched some of our other videos, you know that for the past years we've been using pack goats on our backpacking adventure. We would love to bring our goats with us on the PCT hike, but unfortunately it's just not logistically possible. Trying to get them through the desert where there's minimal water and food, and especially in the Sierras where there's almost no food during the time we'll be hiking through there. And then the problems with permits to go through national parks and such. The pack goats just aren't going to be, they're going to have to stay home on this trip. So we'd love to bring them, but anyway, this one's on us.
So, unlike Ken, I have not been backpacking my entire life, but I've always loved the outdoors. As a kid, we used to go to the mountains. We had a cabin that we would go to up in the Sierra Mountains, and I loved it. I always loved being outdoors. I loved fishing. I loved going on walks in the mountains. But it wasn't until my parents subscribed my sister and I to a magazine that I don't know if it still exists, but it was World Magazine. It was put out by National Geographic, but it was a kids magazine. And I remember reading stories about people doing these epic adventures. I think the first one that I really remember, I think it was about the Appalachian Trail. And but there were stories about people riding their bikes across the country and just doing all these amazing adventures. And back then, someday I am going to do something like this. That was my dream, was to do some kind of an epic adventure, and I didn't know what it would look like. Back then I was like the typical typical kid, typical girl, and I always pictured it was probably going to be on horseback. I thought about riding horseback across the country, but I was determined that I was going to do something amazing. But then life happened, just like with Ken. I got married, I had kids.
Now, Vincent, Tessa, Valerie, Janine, Martha, Andrew, Thomas, Walter, Pat, Linda, Michael, Evadne, Alice, Dominic, and Sasha, it's your bedtime.
And still, that dream was always there, but it's really difficult to do something like that when you're tied down to marriage and jobs and children and family. And so it was put on the back burner, but it was always there, always in the back of my mind that someday I was going to do something. And I don't remember exactly when I learned about the Pacific Crest Trail. It was probably in reading a National Geographic magazine that I read about it, and it sounded very, very intriguing at the time. But at the time, I was thinking that, too many people, I thought I was going to do it. Someday it was going to be the Pacific Crest Trail, but then I thought, no, too many people do the Pacific Crest Trail. Maybe I'll do the Continental Divide Trail. And then it seemed like too many people were doing that trail. If only I didn't know then what I know now. Hardly anybody at that time was hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, and I should have done it at that time, but that's history. But now, Ken and I just started watching videos several years ago of people doing the Pacific Crest Trail, and it just looked like such an epic trip, and we both decided that this is it. This is the time. Our kids are all grown. We're at a point in our lives and our careers that it works, and so here we are. So I mentioned that I had not grown up backpacking, but as an adult, I started to really get interested in backpacking because actually I mentioned before that my first thought was that I was going to do this epic adventure on a horse probably, but after some bad accidents with horses, I ended up with a fused wrist because of one of those accidents. I decided that horses were history and that it was better to rely on either my own legs or on with these guys carrying my stuff, or I was going to carry my own stuff on my back. So probably about 15 years ago or so, I started to get really interested in, actually longer than that, probably 25 years ago, started getting really interested in backpacking, and my first backpack was a day pack, and I would pack up my kids for the day and take them with snacks out into the hills, and that was the beginning of my backpacking. And then probably about 12 years ago, I did a solo backpack trip that was supposed to be a 3-day trip, but I did not plan well. So it turned out to be an overnight 22-mile trip, but the bug was born after that adventure. And even though it was kind of miserable, it was also fantastic. And I've just grown from there. I've done a few solo backpack trips into the wilderness of Idaho. Ken and I, of course, have done several trips together, either with just backpacking or with the goats.
Hey.
So that's how my backpacking experience started.
Okay. Nosy goats. Okay. I'm not sure if we're going to publish this video or just try and reshoot the whole thing. So at the beginning of this video, I said we were going to talk a little bit about who Thea and I were, what our reasons for wanting to hike the PCT were, and third, I thought I'd give you a little information about some of the unique challenges that she and I are going to face as we hike the trail. So, start with myself. Well, I can discuss, I think the first one is obvious for both of us. We're not kids. We are, really? Get out of here. Go on. All right.
What do they say about never trying to share the stage with children or animals?
Speaking of kids, anyway, what the hell was I? Oh, well.
That you're old.
Yeah, I'm old. When I set foot on the PCT on March 16th, that's our start date. We got our permits approved yesterday, we heard. Yeah. So March 16th, I'll be 63 years old. Scary to even think about that. Good Lord. My child bride, however, is only 54 years old, but still, I think everyone out there can recognize that trying to thru hike like this at 54 and 63 is a lot harder than it would be at 24 and 33. So that's number one. Now number two for me is that exactly 2 years ago, I suffered a major heart attack. And I don't mean one of those kind of heart attacks where you feel like a pain in your chest or a... Get out of the way! Go on. Go on. All right. Oh, brother. I think this was a bad idea. Anyway, yeah. Not so. Does anyone really want to know why we don't want to bring our goats on the PCT? Okay. My heart attack. As I said, it wasn't one of those heart attacks where you feel a pressure in your chest, or maybe your arm is numb and you go to the hospital and they check you out and say, yeah, you're having a heart attack. In my case, I was in a racquetball court, having a good game. Felt fine. Was actually beating the opponent I was playing with, until all of a sudden he said I went stiff as a board and face planted into the floor, and here comes an airplane. Really? Good grief. Okay. I don't know if you heard that over the noise. Anyway, yeah, I basically went from playing racquetball to face down on the floor. My opponent went and rolled me over because he thought I'd had a stroke or a seizure or something. Said that my face was dark blue. Checked my pulse real quick, no pulse. That's a bad sign. However, I don't know how to say how lucky I am that it happened exactly when it did, because my opponent was a doctor. So he immediately recognized what needed to be done. He started CPR on me, had somebody else call for an ambulance, and he did CPR on me for over 10 minutes before the ambulance showed up. They had the portable defibrillator with them, and it was just like something on TV, I guess, where, you know, they shock you and they check your pulse, and there's no pulse, and they do it again and no pulse. And anyway, they told me it took 3 times before my heart finally started up again, and that's usually a pretty bad sign. In fact, I didn't even learn till later that people that go into full cardiac arrest, like I did, only have about a 5% survival rate. So, so I really beat the odds. The fact that I'm sitting here right now talking to you is a miracle. So that sounds pretty grim, I know. So that actually isn't the worst thing that happened, though, believe it or not. 8 years ago, in November, God, the fall's a bad month for me. Or a time.
Yeah, November, like next week.
November 18th, yeah, 8 years ago. I was riding my bike to work, and I was riding a mountain bike with the wide handlebars, right on the edge of the road, and a city transit bus came zipping by me way too close.
Edge of the sidewalk.
And hit the edge of my handlebars and knocked me over onto the ground. And even though my upper body fell clear of the bus, both of my legs went underneath the bus and were crushed by the back tires. The only reason I didn't die right then and there was because there were a couple of guys who had watched or had actually been there on hand and saw the accident. One of them was a former Army medic. The other one was someone who had had some first aid training. They immediately applied tourniquets to my legs to stop the bleeding, which apparently was pretty significant, and managed to keep me alive until the ambulance got there. At the hospital, the doctor told Thea that I would almost certainly lose both of my legs. They were that badly injured. And even for the next 2 weeks that I was in the hospital, they weren't sure that I was going to be able to keep. Well, they thought I would probably lose at least one leg, if not both. However, I actually have 2 legs attached to me right now, which, and here we go again. Get out of the way. Hard to keep a train of thought. I ended up spending a total of 8 weeks in the hospital. And when they discharged me to go home in a wheelchair, the doctors told me that in all likelihood I was going to end up having to use a walker for the rest of my life. Or if I worked hard and I was lucky, I could probably just get by with a cane. But backpacking, hiking, all the outdoor activities that I loved, those were a thing of the past. Well, I think through a combination of extraordinarily good luck and stubborn determination, I set out to prove them wrong. After 2 months in the wheelchair, I got up. I did not use a walker. I went straight to a cane. I used a cane for about 2 more months and then put it away, never used it again. 9 months from the date of my accident, I took my first backpacking trip. Granted, it was only about 2 miles and I only carried about a 5-pound day pack. But other than using my trekking poles, I made it. And I think I defied all the odds. Since that time, I've continued to get stronger, more confident. The past several years, I've been backpacking just like I used to, carrying a full pack, hiking on relatively rugged trails, and still pretty reliant on my trekking poles, far more than the majority of other hikers. But with those, and you know, my pace is obviously a little slower than than it was before the accident, but as it stands right now, I'm fully confident that that I can thru-hike the entire length of the PCT. Desert, Sierras, the Washington Mountains, the whole thing. So, anyway, cheerful story, eh? Thea, she has her own challenges as well, so.
Not unlike a lot of women, I grew up rail thin. I was super skinny for most of my childhood and teens, but once I started having children, the weight started coming on, and I had 3 children. Each one I gained a little bit more, so since I started having children, it's been a struggle to get back down to my pre-pregnancy weight before I would have another child. And then at the age of 30, I had a hysterectomy, and it was downhill from there. I've really, really struggled with being able to keep my weight under control, and no matter what I did, I've tried every diet under the sun, I've tried exercising, I've tried all the things that they say you should do, and my weight just has gone up and up and up. And now, as a nurse practitioner, I have a pretty sedentary job. I spend most of my day at work sitting, and I have a 3-hour round-trip commute. So I'm sitting in my car, and I get up very early to go to work. I get home pretty late. So by the time I get home, I'm just exhausted, and I don't have time to exercise a lot. So that one component that I really need, I think, to help me with weight loss, I just have not been able to do very successfully. So clearly I have some pounds to lose, and I know that will happen on the PCT. So that one piece, that exercise, I'm going to get in spades on the PCT. So I'm super excited to have this as part of my weight loss journey and my road to better health. And I know a lot of other people struggle with that, so I'm hoping that watching my progress over this training period and on the PCT will kind of inspire other women in particular that are struggling with the same issues as I am.
Okay, well, that pretty much wraps up what we wanted to do today, which was give you potential YouTube subscribers a chance to find out who we are and if you'll be interested in watching a couple of old duffers like us hike the trail. One piece of information that I think I need to include here, I don't want to confuse anyone talking about our past histories. Thea and I will be celebrating our 10th wedding anniversary on the trail. We'll be probably around the vicinity of Mount Whitney at the time we have our anniversary. So both of us had the misfortune of being married to people who didn't share our love of the outdoors and our love of adventure. And we wasted many years of our life. Well, I don't want to say wasted, but we spent many years of our early lives with people who just had different goals, different ideas of what they wanted out of life. And it wasn't until we met each other that we found, I hate to use the term, met our soulmate. It's a corny, overused term, but I really can't think of a better way to describe someone who literally is, she's my exact twin in a woman's body. And I couldn't think of a better person to share this adventure with. And I'm really looking forward to it. So if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel. We encourage comments from you guys, so let us know what you think. We particularly want to hear your feedback on how we can make better and more interesting videos. We have watched enough videos of other hikers through the years to know that not everybody is, whoa, Jesus, move your butt. Okay, but not everybody is, come here, Steven Spielberg behind the camera. So we're going to try to do the best we can. Anyway, I think we'll call it. We're going to call it right now. All right. Thanks again, and we'll have our next video out here in the next few weeks, and we'll see you guys then.
Thanks for watching.
Dumb goats.
Up, up, up! Pull down! Pull down! Woo!
Come on.
There you go, Dad. You're almost there. Oh, got it, Dad. Keep it balanced.
We go.
There you go, Dad. Up. Step. You got it, Dad. Keep it going.
Go. There we go.
Good job, Dad.